Hello, dear viewer. Another story is right in front of you. I'll remind you to like and subscribe so you don't forget and say that the story, unlike my other stories, is quite small. But it does not cancel the fact that it remains interesting. Thank you for your support. Here we go. First Doctor. Full story. When Amelia was told about her friend's first experience with a doctor, she couldn't believe it. It was like something out of the Penthouse Forums book she'd gotten when she was a teenager. The very one she'd made sure to hide away so no one would find the infamous real-life book. But Liv's story also intrigued the young blonde. She was 18 years old and had just moved out of her childhood home she shared with her grandfather to attend the university of her choice. Going to school had always meant hard work for Amelia, and she was ready for it. What she wasn't ready for was the freedom to find herself. All her life, she had strived to be perfect at whatever she succeeded at. Amelia was no beauty queen. She was beautiful enough, but in a more muted, simple way. She had long, slightly wavy blonde hair and beautiful blue eyes, in the opinion of those around her. Her skin was a little pale, and her figure was average. Amelia had never participated in athletics, so she was pudgy. What the girl has always excelled at is studying. Such a life was boring, however. And now that she was on her own and learning more about herself, Amelia knew what excited her. The thought of Liv telling her what had happened ignited something in her. The thought had kept her so busy for so long that she just had to know more. And Liv was more than happy to share it with her. The girl was ready to share much more than Amelia had expected. After recounting the events in great detail, Liv showed Amelia a picture of the famous Dr. Boss. The man was handsome enough to make Amelia blush. He was nothing like she had imagined him to be, even after Liv's detailed description. Amelia assumed that Liv really liked the doctor to the point of wanting to have a relationship with him, but Liv suggested that she talk to him about giving him the same exam for Emily. It was daunting, but Liv assured her that it was okay. It turned out that Liv did want a deeper relationship with Dr. Boss, but so far it was only at the conversation stage. Liv told Amelia that in her opinion, if Dr. Boss cared about her friend, there was nothing wrong with it. After the conversation, they set about making preparations. At first, Amelia was shocked. She thought it was all so embarrassing, but with Liv's support, she became more confident. Her friend even talked to Dr. Boss, and he agreed to see Amelia. After that, the appointment was scheduled, and here Amelia was already sitting on the examination table. The waiting was almost unbearable. Amelia found it hard not to let her nerves take over. She tied her hair into a tight ponytail and tried to distract herself with her phone. It helped, but nothing could stop her legs from trembling with excitement. Amelia didn't know the man. Not only that, but she was literally in a doctor's office. And while these facts were the cause of her anxiety, they were also the reason that it was all so tempting. Amelia was already impatient. Amelia straightened her back as she heard the sound of the door opening. Her heart dropped to the floor when she saw the doctor enter. It was the worst-case scenario. Amelia thought that after Liv's conversation with Dr. Boss, all issues were resolved. But at the sight of Elias Lewis's face smiling politely at her, the girl almost threw up. It wouldn't have been so bad if she didn't know the man, but she did. Amelia had known the Lewis family all her life. She and their son, Abel, had been friends since before she could remember herself. Amelia. Dr. Lewis smiled pleasantly as he approached her and read the chart on his clipboard. I know you made an appointment with Dr. Boss, but he had some business come up, and I'm filling in for him today, the older man explained, taking a seat on a rolling stool. I realize it can be a little awkward when I'm doing the exam, but I don't mind at all if you're comfortable. Amelia didn't know what to do. She could excuse herself, since it didn't seem like she really needed to, though it would probably be best if she stayed and went through with it. Amelia had been learning a lot about it, and perhaps that would be wise just in case. But could she let Elias Lewis do this? How would she be able to look him in the eye after everything? I think it'll be good, said Amelia quietly at last. Even though the reason for her coming was that she had a problem with her feelings. She really should have just turned tail and run, but Amelia feared it would look even more suspicious that way. God, she didn't know what to do. Good, Dr. Lewis said softly. looking over her file some more before placing it on the counter and getting up to wash his hands. "What brings you in today, Amelia? Is something bothering you?" he asked, wiping his hands thoroughly, though he was about to put on gloves. Amelia shifted, and the thin protective paper crunched beneath her body. "Well, I still need to be examined since I've got older," she said nervously, "and I've noticed that I've been having problems." Elias sat down on his stool, turned to Amelia, and watched her as she spoke. She couldn't maintain eye contact with the doctor. Elias was handsome for an old man. He had long, heavily grayed brown hair that Amelia had only ever seen pulled back into a low bun or ponytail. He looked a lot like Abel. The older her friend got, the more he resembled his father. Even though the doctor was in his 50s, he was elegant, and his round-rimmed glasses completed his look. "Are you leading an adult life?" he asked, pulling up a small metal table and pulling out all the necessary tools. Amelia blushed even more at that question. "I haven't really. I've done some things, but never." Elias's gaze flicked to Amelia for a moment, and his gray eyes gave her a familiar, playful look. "I understand. Of course, you don't need to undergo such an examination if you still haven't tried it, but it never hurts to make sure. Are the problems you're having related to your emotions?" the man asked. When all of his tools were on the metal table and a paper-thin pad of paper lay beneath them, Amelia stared at them. Of course, she'd studied all of it. She had seen many pictures of the instrument, but seeing it in person was intimidating. It was metal. "Amelia?" Nervous blue eyes turned to the doctor again. Amelia felt even more anxious when she realized she hadn't answered his question. "Yes, that's the problem," Amelia replied quietly. "Then let's have a look," Dr. Lewis said, extending the stirrups from the end of the examination table. "Just lie on your back and move to the end of the table, please," he asked politely. Amelia wondered if this embarrassed Mr. Lewis. They had known each other for so long. Amelia had spent entire summers with his family, but it was his job, and she figured it was a day like any other for him. Mr. Lewis had probably seen thousands of women over the years. Seeing her was not something he was going to do. Isn't that right? There was no more time to ponder. Amelia simply agreed to make herself feel better and laid on her back. The thin paper crunched loudly as she lowered herself as she was commanded, until she hit the very edge. "Very good, thank you," Dr. Lewis said. Now she was in the right position. Amelia was glad she couldn't see the elderly doctor's face. There was a pause that seemed to last an eternity. Amelia did not hear Mr. Lewis preparing things, nor did she feel him getting to work. But she could feel the cool air in the study. It made her shudder slightly as she waited impatiently for it to begin. The silence in the office was really bugging her, making her anxious and ashamed that she had started this whole thing. This was a terrible idea. How could she have thought something like this could be interesting? Yes, it had worked out for Liv, but Liv was much more experienced and confident. Amelia, on the other hand, was still a girl. Hell, this was beyond her qualifications, even if Dr. Boss was available. "Well, Amelia, you don't seem to have much trouble with perception. Or are you always like this?" asked Elias, as Amelia heard him fiddling with some tools. She then felt a cold tool. The girl let out a thin squeak. "I'm not sure. I don't think so," she replied, hoping that would be the end of it. For a few seconds, Dr. Lewis was silent. The sensation wasn't very noticeable, but it was slightly uncomfortable. Amelia stayed where she was, waiting for Elias's instructions before doing anything. But before the doctor could say anything, he rose from his chair and stepped aside, running his gaze over Amelia. His gaze made Amelia flinch and avert her eyes, though they couldn't focus on anything, not under the sizzling gaze of her best friend's father. "I've been doing this for a very long time, Amelia," Dr. Lewis said softly. 20 years now, and I've had many women come to me with exactly your ailment, but never with girls your age." Amelia couldn't speak. She was just stunned that this was actually happening. Dr. Lewis was married to the most beautiful woman Amelia had ever seen. Mrs. Lewis would be heartbroken if she knew what her husband was going to do, But Amelia still couldn't figure out exactly what he had in mind for her. She could only guess. "Tell me more about your this side of activism, Amelia," the doctor said. "I didn't do much," Amelia admitted. "Played around a little and that's it. I tried to do like with the apple." She blushed even more and now covered her face with her hands. Dr. Lewis hummed softly. "Looks like all you really need is a little practice. You're such a smart girl. I know you'll figure it out easily. I will teach you everything you need to know, Amelia. Just follow my instructions and I'll make sure everything goes well." His tone was professional, like he was a teacher or something, though everything about this situation was morally wrong and obscene. As discouraged as Amelia was, she was still a little curious, even a little flustered. This was wrong, and she already felt guilty. However, the girl knew what she was going to do, even if it wasn't fair. She was going to push all the worries and negative thoughts out of her head and do it. The consequences could be dealt with later. Dr. Lewis moved closer to Amelia. "Relax so you can be more confident," the older man instructed. Amelia felt a surge of strength and confidence. Just a quick stop. "I cut out a piece here because of some rules I don't want to break, but I'll remind you that you can find all the stories on our Patreon. Moving on. I knew you'd learn so quickly. You always have been." The young woman felt queasy to the point of nausea that Dr. Lewis was speaking to her in this manner. What he was voicing, this was her Everest, in terms of self-confidence, and it was unlike anything else. Unlike Liv, she didn't lash out. "I'm sure I don't need to tell you that this should stay between us, after all. A doctor's secret is a doctor's secret," the doctor said as he took off his gloves, tossing them in the trash can and handing Amelia a tissue to clean herself up. When the effect of what had happened had worn off, Amelia was horrified at what she had done to her confidence. As she hurried out of the office, she kept her eyes on the doctor, for she wanted to be anywhere but there. Friends, we have just completed the journey through this complex and multi-layered story that Amelia shared with us. The full version is already on our Patreon. With each word, we stepped with her through her trials and unexpected developments. The emotions and feelings she experienced can resonate deeply with each of us. What we see at the heart of this story is the clash of individuality and autonomy with society's expectations and perceptions. It is Amelia's struggle to understand what truly allows her to feel free and independent. Such an experience is not only an exploration of her identity, but also a process of self-definition and self-recognition. This is the psychological core of our story. Each of us faces moments when we need to make decisions that reinforce or blur our personal boundaries. In the long run, these decisions shape our understanding of ourselves and our relationship with the world around us. Remember that each of us deserves respect, and our personal boundaries must be carefully guarded. Our journey with Amelia is over, but there are many new stories ahead of us, full of discoveries and reflections. See you soon.